Hey scrapbook friends, it's Nicole and I'm here today with a layout tutorial. I know it's been a little while since I've done one of those, but what I'm finding is that I create a layout and then it's already done and I didn't think to record it. And that's kind of exactly what happened to me today. Funny story is I was playing with this idea and so I grabbed an old piece of paper. This little brown check paper is from Daily Docket, which is like from 2015. I just had a couple pieces left. I thought, oh, I'll use this old paper. I'll never use it for anything else. And then I'll do my real layout with the new What a Zoo. But it turned out so cute that I went ahead and stuck my pictures down. So I'm going to be showing you this layout. Haven't figured out yet what I'm going to call it. But it features the circle maker. And this is a tool that I really am learning to love, and I have some tips about how to use it that I hope will help you. We're going to create it with papers from the new What a Zoo 2 or a paper from the What a Zoo 2 designer paper pack, and we are going to use this kind of jungle leaf print. You're also going to need a couple of pieces to be for your base. I'm going to kind of copy this and use a light gray as the background. That's Creative Memories' name for kind of this beigeish color. I'm going to use some green for the circle mats and some yellow for my accent pieces. All right. But the main thing I want you to learn from this is the technique of how to make this really cool circle frame effect. And in this one, we're going to stretch it across 2 pages because I think it looks really cool. And you can do this, you know, with lots of different sizes. You could do it on a single page, but we're going to do it across 2 pages. And these are some pictures from, you know, that magical place I like to go to that has a safari ride. Okay, so that's our sample layout. And I'm going to show you the steps to recreate it. And we're going to use the What a Zoo 2. And the nice thing about this layout is that it needs only 1 piece of designer paper. So it's a great thing to do if you have maybe just 1 piece left, like I did with Daily Docket. Actually, I think I have a couple pieces of Daily Docket. So we're going to start by moving all this stuff out of the way. For this layout, I want you to start by cutting your designer paper to 8 by 8. Now, if you guys know me, from watching my videos, you know I hate to have to fold out the arm. Actually, let me do that in a different color so you can see it better. I hate to have to fold out the arm on my trimmer. I'm just lazy. I admit it. All right, so we're going to do that in 8 by 8. And so I'm going to do a little math. You can fold out the arm and trim if you'd rather do it that way, but I know that I can just cut 4 inches off a 12 by 12 piece and be left with 8. So I'm going to cut 4 inches off in both directions. And that's going to give me my 8 by 8 piece of paper. Now you're going to want, I like to use the Creative Memories cutting mat. You guys know I have a different brand of mat that's here on my table. But I like the Creative Memories mat just because it has the measurements that are easy to find. And the zero centering ruler is very, very helpful for this technique. Actually, I think I'm going to do it on this side so you can see it better. And you're going to need one of these, a 3 by 3 Post-it note. If you don't have a 3 by 3 Post-it note, you could use a scrap of paper. It kind of needs to, it absolutely needs to be a square. I mean, there's probably ways to do it without a square, but I don't know them. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a template to use with the circle maker. All right, so this is our circle maker. And what we're going to do, take a pencil or a pen, and we're going to draw a line from corner to corner on this square Post-it note. If you wanted to use, you could use a scrap of paper or cardstock that is 3 inches square, but it's kind of hard to get perfectly square sometimes when you're cutting. So I highly recommend you invest in some of these because once I teach you this technique, I think you'll find that you're going to be using it a lot. Okay, so here I've drawn just a corner to corner on both sides of my Post-it note. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my zero centering ruler. You notice there's 2 sides of this ruler. This side has all the little 1/8 inch markings. This side has the logo. So that we're going to use the logo side because we need these horizontal lines. This side doesn't have those. You see that, it's just numbers. So we need those lines, and we need the 1 1/4 inch line. So the 1 inch line is darker, but we're going to go to the next line up, which is 1 1/4, and line that up along one of the lines that you drew and then line the 0 line up along the cross line. Get it as kind of straight as you can. You will see, if you're like me, that maybe I didn't cut as straight as I thought, and then draw just a line right here. So basically what you're trying to do is to make these two lines are perfectly square to each other, and this line right here is 1 1/4 inches that way. All right, you do not have to write that 1 1/4 inch thing on there. You can if that will help you remember, but you just want to have this vertical line and then these two perpendicular lines that are exactly parallel to each other, that are 1 1/4 inches apart. And that's because our circle maker is 2 1/2 inches apart. So if I put the 0 right there, you're going to see that the 2 1/2 inch line is the other edge. And this, oops, cat hair, sorry. This little point in the middle is the pivot point for this whole gadget. And I have done another circle cutter video, which goes into this a little bit more, but that was like a year ago that I made that video, and I've really learned some different tricks about that. But the point right here is what we're gonna put on this little center dot, and this little positioning template is gonna be how we do it. All right, so if you have any other questions, I may need to do a separate just video on how to do this, but hopefully by following along, you'll be able to see it. So now I'm gonna put my paper, I'm gonna center it here on my 13-inch cutting mat. So since it's 8 by 8, I know it's 2 inches in from either side. So it's centered on here. Then I'm gonna take a piece of repositionable adhesive on the top of my little template, and that's just gonna make this step easier, because I'm going to still line up this line the middle line that I just drew, and the 0 line, and I'm going to stick it to the underneath of my trimmer. All right, you see that? It's just stuck underneath, just temporarily, as straight as I can get it. Because now I want to use the 6-inch line right here and put this down, take off that. Unfortunately, the adhesive did stick to my ruler, which is not where I wanted it, but okay. So now this is exactly in the center of my 8-inch piece of paper, right? So it's 4 inches there, 4 inches there, 4 and 4. Okay, so that's what you want. And once you have this, it doesn't matter if this moves around. And that's one of the things I love about this technique. So the next thing I want to do is I want to cut a 7-inch circle. So let's see, this is the 8 by 8 base. And then we're going to cut a 7-inch circle. Okay, so to do that, you're going to look at your circle maker. One side has centimeters. It says cm right there. That doesn't stand for creative memories. It stands for centimeters. The other side has inches. It says inch right there. So we want to cut a 7-inch. So you turn this white piece that loosens the slide and turn it down to 7. And you see there's a black line, and you want to line that up with a 7. It doesn't have to be, you know, this isn't rocket science, or I don't even know what, baking. That has to be real precise, but we want it to be as close as can be. And we're going to use this black line is what we're going to use to help us position our cutter on here. So you're going to take the black line and line it up with the vertical line, and the front of the blue piece and line it up with the forward horizontal line. This line is only so that we can position this. All right, let's see if you can see that. All right, so I've got the blue, the front blue is lined up with that line. And can you see that black line at the 7? And that's lined up with this other line. And this is the secret to this whole technique that has changed my life as far as using the circle maker. So, oh, I forgot to tell you. The circle maker has a safety blade like our trimmer. So when you throw this in your bag, this is a one-piece tool. You don't need any separate blades. The blade is in here. when you throw this in your bag, in order for this not to cut things up, it's a safety blade. And you can actually access this blade by pushing down. This looks like a little top of a clicky ballpoint pen and opening it up, and the blade is in here. And I'm going to pull it out, or push it out. And if you look right here, you can see there's a teeny tiny blade. It's about the size of a sequin. Let's see if I can get it to push out with my thumbnail. Barely. You see that teeny tiny blade that comes out? Just for comparison, here's the trimmer blade, which is also a safety blade, works on the same principle. It's about the size of a quarter. This one is just teeny tiny. So this blade goes in here, but in order for it to work, you saw how much trouble I had pushing that down with my thumbnail. There's this little piece in here that's going to push down on that to let the blade come out. All right, so when you push down, let's see. Oh, I forgot. There's another safety feature is this little white piece. In order to push this down, I can push on this all I want. But again, if we throw this in your bag and something squishes against it, you don't want this cutting up your stuff. So you have to push down on the white, kind of pinch that together, and then push down, and then that lets the little blade come out, okay? So that's the only thing that's a little bit tricky, is figuring that out the first time. I'm gonna line it back up, blue line on the front line, black line on the vertical line, push in the white and push down on the blue, and we're gonna just go around. And it's super fast and super smooth. So this is the piece we're gonna use for this layout. But what's nice now is that with this, you can cut rings. So if you want to have a 1-inch ring, you know, for a layout design, the trick is you need to scoot your circle maker over 2 inches. You have to remember that when you're cutting, so this, I know that this is a 7-inch circle right now, but if I cut if I want a 1/2 inch difference, I would cut a 6-inch circle, because you have to have that 1/2 inch on each side. So I'm going to cut a 1-inch ring, and we're going to move it 2 inches. Okay, hopefully that's making sense. I know that I taught this recently to some people and we had some questions. So I'm going to loosen this again, slide it down to 5. And we're not using this next piece for the layout. I'm just showing you now what fun things you can do with this leftover scrap, which we may use in a different layout. So now I've moved it to 5. I'm going to pinch and spin around. You can go in either direction. Okay, so this got me a 1-inch ring, but of course it has 1 inch on either side, so that's why it's 2 inches smaller to get a 1-inch ring. My favorite ring size is actually 1/2 inch, so for a 1/2 inch ring, I'm going to move it down 1 inch. So move it down to 4, and we're going to do the same thing to do a 1/2 inch ring. And it's okay if I'm cutting off the corners of my little positioner, it still works fine without the corners. So there's a 1/2 inch ring. The tool is actually kind of funny, because instead of having 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, it has 2/10 of an inch. So I'm gonna now scoot this down and see what happens if we just move it down 1 tick mark, which is less than 1/4 of an inch. But remember, it's gonna have to go on both sides. So we're gonna get just a little whisper thin ring by moving it in to 2/10. Oh, and that was that's a little tricky to get that small. I don't think it's quite square. So the smallest you can cut with this is almost 3 inches. If you look on here, it doesn't quite go to 3 inches, and that's because of this little guy. So it bumps up into that. So the smallest you can do is 3 inches. And we are going to need to be using that for our finished layout. So it's good to kind of practice this one. This one's a pain because you do have to work more around this, the little button there. Okay, so this is the smallest size ring you can do, which is, you can see it's just a hair bigger than 3 inches. Okay, and you can reuse this little Post-it note. In fact, They sell Post-it notes that are all over sticky, and I really ought to get some of those because those would be really ideal for this technique. So if you haven't purchased your Post-it notes to do this yet, look for the all over sticky ones. I know they have them on Amazon. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this piece. Sorry, I was like, where's my paper? I'm gonna take the shorter piece that's 8 inches, and we are gonna need to cut some 1/2 inch strips for the rest of our layout process. And of course, if you know, the 1/2 inch mark is right the start of the grid. You know, this is the cutting line, the one closest to the logo, and the 1/2 inch is where the grid starts. And it has 1/2 inch up there, but just remember where the grid starts. We need 4 of these. I just put a new mat in my trimmer and it's just cutting so beautifully. It makes me happy. So if your trimmer is not cutting nicely, if you're getting jagged edges, check and see if it's time to replace your mat. Creative Memories has told us to expect about 500 cuts per section of your mat, and then you flip it 1, 2, 3, 4. And I do have an extra, whoops. Oh, that was last night's project. I do have an extra mat that I've stored under here so that when it starts to get icky, I have something to do. Now we're going to take our 8 inch base and we want to cut it in half, and I'm going to cut that so that's 4 inches. Again, I don't have to fold up my arm. Makes me happy. All right. Whoops. We're just going to cut that in half. And these are the pieces we're going to use to build our layout. I'm going to take the light gray paper. Oh, I forgot to write a little note that we need 4 1/2 inch strips. And they're 4 by 8 because we're using that leftover piece. Okay, so 4 1/2 inch strips that are 4 by 8. And now we're again going to use our 13 inch mat to help us position this. Well, actually for this part, I think I'm just going to use my 0 centering ruler. I'm going to take my half circle piece that I just cut. I'm going to use the 0 centering ruler. Again, I'm going to use the side with the lines, and I'm just going to line up the line with the edge of my paper. Let's see if I can lift that up to show you. It's just easier to lift it up than to try and move my camera back and forth. All right, so there's the line is just on the edge. Oops, see, like here, it's not right. I'll straighten it. There you go. Okay, so that's how we're gonna make sure that this is straight. You may wanna use your repositionable for this. For this piece, I kinda like to use my regular adhesive. I just like the regular better. I don't know why. Feel more secure. But okay, so there's my line. It's all straight. Oops, I'm off the screen, sorry. All straight right there. And then I'm going to use the marks on here. I'm going to move this down about 1/2 inch from the top, and this little ruler is going to make sure that it's 1/2 inch from the side, and I can just kind of butt it up against here. And that gives me my first piece that I'm going to position. Then I'm going to take one of these 1/2 inch strips, and we're gonna line it up with this. It's a little bit longer than we need, and that's on purpose because you want to have just a bit of wiggle room in case your paper isn't square or your cuts aren't exactly straight. This guy's not wanting to work for me today. All right, actually went off the edge. That would be the advantage of using the repo. I know a lot of people prefer the repo for everything, but I find that I use a lot more of it than I use of the regular. So you could still take your ruler and put it right here to help keep this straight. But I'm just going to use this little piece on the, use the edge of here and the 1/2 inch mark. And this is going to go off the edge a little bit, which makes this actually easier. Okay. So then I've stuck down my first piece, and I love having it on the mat because it makes it really easy to turn this around and do the next piece. I don't actually know what measurement this is going to come out to be at. 8.5, I guess. Yeah, because it's an 8-inch thing and we did it down 1/2 inch. So we're just gonna line that up. And again, it's just plenty easy to get it started here. And I'm gonna show you in just a sec. My 1/2 inch is a little bit big. So there's a tiny bit of inconsistency right there. I just kind of center it and go. I don't feel like anyone's ever gonna notice that, you know, once we get our pictures on. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing for the other side. But you wanna make sure that you're doing it in the opposite direction, because if you did it the same way, then they're not gonna go together. So for this one, I need to put my square at this end so that when I put these pieces together, they will line up. All right, so now I'm going to straighten this again. It's 1/2 inch line along the actual edge of my paper. Position this on, at the 1/2 inch right here. It's straight with the edge of my 0 centering ruler. And then I do the same thing with adding my 1/2 inch strips. So you can see it doesn't take a lot of time. It's not a super time consuming layout, but I think it looks so neat. All right, now I'm just going to make sure that this is straight. Bump this up, go over the edge. Actually, I put adhesive went off the edge, so I need, okay, there's still some on there. All right, so there's the first one. And then we'll do the last piece with our 4th. If you weren't quite centered, one of these might be a lot off. I mean, it may be off by, you know, even 1/8 of an inch is not the end of the world. Just measure, use your ruler and measure this piece and cut a strip that's the width of your end piece. And that will, nobody will ever know. This is another one that's a little hair bigger. Okay, nobody's ever gonna know that either, right? So I've gone off the edge and that's totally fine. I'm just gonna take my scissors. I like to trim from the underneath side actually. Take my scissors and just trim that off. The reason I like to cut from underneath is because I can kind of rest the blade here along the, come on camera, focus on here. Okay, rest the blade on the side of the paper and that just makes sure that my little pieces that I trim off are straight. And I'll do the same on the other side. So this is kind of the basic frame, I guess, if you will, of this layout. And now we're going to build the other pieces of our layout. I'm going to show you again the sample layout that I started with, so you can see kind of now what we're going to do as far as putting the circles in and these other mats. And I wanted to point out that this ends up being a 6-inch circle, and most of us don't have a 6-inch picture, but I took 2 pictures together and I'm going to show you how I did that too. And I probably should have left a gap in between. I kind of wish I would have left a gap in between. Maybe we'll do that the one I show you. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to take this dark green to be my complementary circle mats. And because this was a 7-inch circle, and I want to have about 1/4 of an inch spacing between the outside or the inner part of the circle and my mat, I'm going to do this mat at 6.5 inches. So you remember, you're going to cut it in half. So I want a 1/2 inch, sorry, I want a 1/4 inch ring. So I double that, I want a 1/2 inch smaller. So then my mat is going to be (6.5 inches). I'm going to try and cut 2 of these. So here's another tip for using this tool. If you don't want to put you could absolutely take this piece off and measure and find out exactly where this can go. And that would actually be a really smart thing to do. But I'm lazy and I'm not going to do that. So I want a 6.5 inch mat circle. You see that? 6.5 inch mat. And again, because this doesn't have 1/2 inches, you just have to kind of eyeball it in between the 4/10 and the 6/10. All right, so it's just in between those two pieces to get the 1/2 inch. This little piece that looks like a ballpoint pen lines up with where your blade is. So I'm going to say, okay, 6.5 inches. I know that that's to here. That's about 3 1/4. I'm going to put this right here, the edge 3 1/4. This, I'm going to bring this into like 3 1/2 because I want to have a little extra space. So I know I'm cutting. My 6.5 inch circle will be 3 1/4 on each side. So I put it at 3 1/2 here and about 3 1/2 here. I've just kind of centered this piece. I'm sorry, that part's probably really confusing. And I probably should use the cutting mat because look, I went off the edge just a hair. Okay, I'm going to do the other side the way I should have done it in the first place to show you what I'm doing. We're going to peel off our little piece. And you can fit both of these on one piece of paper. I'm going to peel off my little piece. I know people always hate it when I do math. So to cut our 6.5 inch mat circle, I need to have it be a 3 1/4 inch radius. Remember that from 3rd grade math? So I'm going to take my little piece. I'm going to still use the 0 centering section. And then I'm going to measure, because I want a little bit of space, I'm going to do this at 3 1/2, just so that I don't accidentally cut into my other piece. I hope I won't accidentally cut into my other piece. So I'm going to do this at 3 1/2 and 3 1/2. And look, it didn't even go straight. 3 1/2 and 3 1/2. Straighten up right here. Does that look straight? Okay. Doesn't have to be exactly straight. I just need it to fit. And so now, oops, now I put it upside down, which doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter which direction you do it either, because there's a line on either side. I just like to do it this way for some reason. Creature of habit. And what you can do before you cut actually is hold this down and slide this around. And remember that ballpoint thing? It looks like I got plenty of room to make my cut. I'm not going off the edge, I hope. All right, let's see if that worked. All right, that was actually easier and more safe to use our little sizing template. And we're going to use this for several things on this this layout. So just, you know, keep using it. If it stops being sticky, you can always cut another one. All right, then we're going to need the these little circles at the bottom. Now, the smallest size we can cut with our cutter is just bigger than 3 inches. And I think that's what I did here. So that's that again, just bigger than 3 inches right there. So I want this to be 3 1/2 inches to give me that 1/2 inch mark. And this one I really am just going to eyeball because I think I've got plenty of space to fit these in here. But again, I can tell by where this little pointy thing is. Yeah, lots of space in here. So it is a little harder because I've gotten in here where it's smaller. But I'm going to cut this little 3 1/2. See how much easier it is when you don't care where the cut happens. 3 1/2. And then we actually need 6 of these. So I'm just gonna cut 4 more of these, and then I'll pause, and then I'll come back in so you don't have to watch me cut all 6. But we're gonna end up with 6 3.5-inch circle mats. All right, 6 3.5-inch circle mats. So I will be right back. Okay, I'm back with my 6 3.5-inch circle mats. And then the only other thing we're going to need are 2 4x6 photo mats. So if you look on my original piece right here, I used kind of this, it was called Mariner Green because it matched my little squares on here. But for this one, there's just a hint of gold in this paper. So I chose to use some goldenrod cardstock. This is actually one of my favorite colors. And I'm just gonna cut it at 4x6. It barely fits widthwise at 4x6, and this way you can get 2 out of 1 strip of paper. You could do a 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 if you prefer, or you could use a pre-made mat that's 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. You'll just overlap it a little bit. I did have to fold out my arm. But so now I'm gonna have just these 2 4x6 mats, and I think I'm done with my trimmer for a little bit. So I'll write that down just because I'm trying to get in the habit of doing this. 2 4x6 rectangle mats. Okay. So now we get to assemble our layout. And this is the fun part. And you could, of course, do this for anything. I know that when my daughter was a baby, we took so many pictures of her. And, you know, sometimes you get, especially with babies, they get the funniest, cutest little expressions, and you want to take all the pictures of all the different funny faces that they make. This would be so cute for a picture of a baby. This would be cute for kids in the pool or a volleyball game where you have a whole bunch of little small pictures of something. But it kind of emphasizes up here. Let's see. I don't think I moved my camera, but boy, it feels like I'm really working out in outer space over here. Okay, so we're going to put the 2 green big circles up here. And then we're going to put the 2 gold mats, and you can overlap them either way. If you could want the circle, oh look, I could just even butt them up against each other. I'll decide as we get going what I want to do. And then 3 of these little mats on the bottom, and they do overlap just a hair. All right, and there you have this same layout. I'll go ahead and stick it all down for you. If you really are particular about things, I usually use more adhesive than this, but just so that you guys don't have to watch me, you could take your ruler and kind of line up, you know, the center with the 0 and the 4 and the 4, but you guys know me. I don't care that much. It's only scrapbooking. If it looks pretty and somebody decides they want to go measure it, that's on them. But I think this looks really fun. Really fun to have these little circle layouts. Originally, when I was kind of thinking about this, I was thinking about the safari ride at Animal Kingdom and the little safari trucks that you ride in, and kind of how this in my head was kind of looking like a little truck, you know. So this could be actually maybe make a fun, maybe like a school bus theme if you did it with yellow with black wheels and pictures of your kids' school friends or your own school friends, depending on how far back you're scrapbooking. So I don't know which I like better. I don't know. Either you could either tuck it under or over, either way. All right, and so then because these are 3.5-inch circles, I think they're 3. Oh, I wrote it down, didn't I? Yeah, 6 3.5-inch circle mats. So then the photos for this would be for a 3-inch circle photo. For all of these are going to have a 3-inch circle photo. And that's another place where this, these little stickers that we've made, or this template, is really going to come in handy. I got to find where I put my photos. And it's harder to use this particular cutter with the on a photo because the custom cutting system, let's see where my circle is. If you want to cut something with the custom cutting system, you can put it on here and see what's going to be in your space. But with this, it's harder to tell. But this little circle now that we have, I know that this is is a 3-inch. I think that, well, I don't know that this is a 3-inch. But I know that this is going to be right where I want it to be. So let's say, I think this little guy is too big. We don't want to do that. I did already go through and pick out the photos I wanted for my main layout, but let's do this elephant. All right, can you see that little elephant right there? And I'm just going to kind of line up. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't go off the edge, but now I know he's in the center, and I'm going to scoot my thing all the way down. And you'll see that it's not quite on 3 inches. Come on, there we go. It's just a hair past 3 inches. All right, but that's okay, because that's what we want. Sometimes people have told me they have issues with their mat sliding when they cut, and especially with pictures. Pictures are a little harder to cut through than paper because it's got that kind of plastic coating on the top. You can get that kind of honeycomb shelf paper, if you know what I'm talking about, and put that underneath, and it works really great to keep it from sliding. But we're just going to cross our fingers that it doesn't slide. Oh, I should have cleaned my space off. All right. All right, and I always like to move this and make sure that I've cut all the way. So that's now cut my 3-inch circle. That's going to fit perfectly in there. And you could do the same with like lined paper or plain paper if you wanted to have a journal box. But now you're saying, okay, but how do I put something in here? I mean, you could use, if you had an enlargement, then you could easily cut a picture that's a, well, this was a 6.5 inch. So I would again say to cut, oh, here we go. I would again say to cut a 6-inch circle or 6-inch photo to go in here. But a lot of times we don't have that. Okay, so what I did for my sample layout is I put 2 pictures together. And I put them so they're butted up against each other. But in retrospect, I kind of wish I had not. And so for this one that I'm going to show you how to do it, I think we're going to not have them stick together. And so let's see, we could do that one. And I always take so many pictures on this safari ride, and then I end up not scrapbooking. I end up not printing all of them, and I end up not even scrapbooking all of them. All right. So I think what we're going to do for this is we're going to make another template, a bigger template, just so that we can position how we want this to be. And I love to use the you know, these papers from they put in front of the paper packs. And let's see, I want to cut a 6-inch circle, so I'm going to cut this to be a 7-inch square. Oh, I could have done the subtract and do 5. All right, and that's just so that I can know what I'm doing. And I'm going to do things a little different this time. And instead of just using my Post-it note, because I can already use this Post-it note, what I want to do is I'm going to make a bigger version of this template. Again, by drawing corner to corner. All right, well, let's see, you need to allow a little bit of space for your pen to go. Okay, so then we're gonna do the same thing. We still want it to be 1.25 inches because our circle thing is still 2.5 inches wide. So this is still 1.25 inches, even though this is a 7 by 7 square. And then because my mat is 6.5, I want a 6-inch photo circle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut me a little viewing window here, a 6-inch viewing window, so that then I can look at my pictures before I cut them to know what I'm doing. Okay, and you want these lines to go all the way off because this is the piece we're going to use. This is kind of now an extra piece. And then I'm going to take a piece of, I had just used scrap cardstock, but because I want because I want to leave a gap now, I think I'm going to take a piece of cardstock, and it does not have to be 6 inches. And in fact, because we're doing 2 of them, I'm just going to cut, let's see, I'll cut a 3-inch wide strip because that'll give me a good 1/2 inch in each direction to adhere my pictures to. All right. So I'm going to take this, there's my line, so I can see kind of how much of this picture I can get at half. Okay, so there's the line. So that's a 1/2 inch. This one. Okay, so I'm going to trim this down. I don't have my photo trimmer handy, but I'm going to trim this to be 3. Actually, I'm going to do 3 1/4 because I want it to, well, actually, I don't need it to be 3 1/4 because I'm going to leave a gap. So that's going to be 3 inches. And then this piece I'm going to cut at 3 inches again. Hopefully I don't chop off those birds' heads. Okay, so those are my 2 3-inch pieces. Actually, I'm going to cut just 1/8 of an inch off the end of this. Okay. And I'm going to use some good, solid, regular adhesive on here. I'm lining it up with the grid on my mat so that I know that that's going to be spaced evenly. And I'm going to leave just, oh, look at that. I trimmed it funny. Okay, I'm going to leave just a hair. I'm going to line it up again with this line. Okay, so see, now I'm at like 6 inches square on my little, oh, I put the adhesive on the wrong side. I put it on all 4 sides. Dang it. It's like I don't even know how to scrapbook. Okay. So put this on here, just leaving out that little bit of a gap. And using these lines to make sure that everything is square. You could, of course, use your ruler and butt it up against that way. And yeah, only needed to put adhesive on the parts that we're going to stick on the screen right here. And now we're going to take this template again and find the middle. So here are my 2 middle lines. But I'm going to take my little piece, which now I have lost because I keep doing that. Someday I'm going to be a tidy scrapbooker, but today is not that day. So anyway, here's one I used before. I didn't write the measurement on it. And I'm going to just eyeball this one. You could measure it, absolutely could measure it. But because I've got that line and that line, actually, I think I will measure it just to make sure that I'm centered. because this one is not super forgiving because our picture's only 6 inches wide and I want to cut a 6-inch circle. So I actually think I'm going to go a hair less than 6. We'll go down to that 5.8 line. It doesn't matter exactly, except you're cutting 2, so you want them to both be the same. All right, so now I've just gone just shy of the 6, so it's 5 and something. And actually this is stuck down here, and that might serve me well because it's going to keep it from sliding around. And that's why I wanted to use the real adhesive rather than the repositionable, because you don't want this to move at all while you're doing it. Okay, now that I've done this, when I come up around, it knocks this out of the way, so go ahead and just pull that off if you need to. Get it out of your way. All right, and there, oops, I slid around a little bit. So I'm just gonna trim off this little speck right here. Actually, I wanna leave that piece on there. So I'll use my repo for. Stick back down. Because this isn't gonna matter because we're gonna put it on our 6.5-inch mat. All right, I think that looks pretty nifty. And you could even do this with 4 photos. You could have, 4 corners. You could have 4 different pattern papers. But isn't that a neat way to use this big circle if you don't have enlargement size piece that you might want to put in here otherwise? All right, so that's how you can fit 2 photos together in a circle. All right, and of course, you guys know how to do a horizontal or a vertical photo, and I'm just going to show you the one that I finished rather than make me find pictures, because I picked all the good ones for the layout that I did because it turned out so cute. Okay, and I am going to clean up my workspace as soon as I'm done talking to you guys. So here's my finished video with daily my finished layout with daily docket, and then here's the one using the currently available papers from What a Zoo. All right, so, and you can see on here that I didn't have a vertical photo. I don't take a lot of, well, when I'm on the safari ride, I tend to take a lot of horizontal. Like this must have been my real camera. And so I just cut this horizontal photo into a circle. I'm going to journal under here. I'm going to put a title right here. I actually think I might use some of the pieces. Oh, that would actually, the colors would actually kind of work. From the matte pack, there's one that says Safari. So this one, oh, I like that one. It's the wrong direction though. One of these. Anyway, so I may cut that and fit that on here and then do this to do a little bit of journaling. Or the layered embellishments are really cute too. I'll figure this out. And you probably, you want to do some other embellishments on here. You could do, so even these What a Zoo embellishments work really well with this. Oh, look at this one. I could use this, couldn't I? Not to be named. But I could put a couple of these little leaves and something like that, maybe. I'm trying to do the triangle thing that we know a little bit about. I'm not real good at that whole layering thing. That could be cute right there. Anyway, there you go. What should we call this? I don't want to call it a circle frame. What is it? Oblong frame, rounded inside frame layout. We're going to call it a rounded inside frame layout. I hope that you will try it. I hope that my directions, in spite of my kind of messy work table, made sense. Started with the 8x8 base. We cut a 7-inch circle, and then we cut 4 1/2-inch strips that are 4 by 8, and then we assembled the large oblong frame, and then we cut the 6 1/2-inch mat circle, 6 3 1/2-inch circle mats, 2 4 by 6 rectangle mats, and then the 6-inch photo circle, or the, uh-oh, I lost one. The 3-inch photos go on here. So, sorry, I guess I didn't write that one. Anyway, hopefully that's not too much information. The secret is this little thing. Once you make this guy, you can do all sorts of things with your circles. You can start a layout today and then decide tomorrow that you want to cut rings, and you could come back and cut more rings. I'm sure I'll be doing more layouts with this technique because I think it's a game changer. So I hope you think so too. I would love to see your finished results of this layout. If you will share them with me on my Nicole's Scrapbooks Facebook page. That's the easiest way I have found. And I would love to see them. So thanks so much, as always, for watching my channel, your great feedback, and for all of those of you who order on my website. I certainly appreciate you. Thanks very much, and happy scrapbooking.